Hello and welcome back to my channel, Talented Reads. Today's video is my May reading wrap up. Now before we get started, I just want to say there's some yard work going on, so you're probably going to hear it in the background. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do about it. In the month of May, I read a total of 14 books and a total of 3,765 pages. My average rating for the month was a 3.4. It felt like a blah reading month, but I think that's been like the same average that I've had for the last couple months. So I don't know. For my horror challenge, in which I read a group of books associated with a specific subgenre of horror, I will do a separate dedicated horror wrap-up video for what I read in May, so let's just talk through those books really quick here. First is Man with No Name by, I think that's Lard Byron. This is about Nanashi, who was born into a life of violence, delivered from the mean streets by the Heron clan. He mastered the way of the gun and knife and swiftly ascended through Yakuza ranks to become a dreaded enforcer. His latest task: he and an entourage of expert killers are commanded to kidnap Muzaki, a retired world-renowned wrestler, under the protection of the rival Dragon Syndicate. It should be business as bloody usual for Nanashi and his ruthless brothers in arms, except for the detail that Muzaki possesses a terrifying secret. Dun, dun, dun. Next is Last Days by Brian Evenson. Intense and profoundly unsettling, Last Days is a down-the-rabbit-hole detective novel set in an underground religious cult. The story follows Klein, a brutally dismembered detective forcibly recruited to solve a murder inside the cult. As Klein becomes more deeply involved with the group, he begins to realize the stakes are higher than he previously thought. Big Machine by Victor Lavelle. Ricky Rice is a meddling hustler with a lingering junk habit, a bum knee, and a haunted mind. A survivor of a suicide cult, he scrapes by as a porter at a bus depot in Utica, New York, until one day a mysterious letter arrives summoning him to enlist in a band of paranormal investigators comprised of former addicts and petty criminals, all of whom had at some point in their wasted lives heard what may have been the voice of God. Next is The Devil All the Time by Donald Ray Pollock. Set in rural southern Ohio and West Virginia, this book follows a cast of compelling and bizarre characters from the end of World War II to the 1960s. And caught in the middle of all this is Arvin Eugene Russell, Willard and Charlotte's orphan son, who grows up to be a good but also violent man in his own right. And lastly is The Butcher and the Wren by, I think it's Elena Urquhart. Something dark is lurking in the Louisiana bayou. Killer with a penchant for medical experimentation is hard at work, completing his most harrowing crime yet, taunting the authorities who desperately try to catch up. But forensic pathologist Dr. Ren Mueller is the best there is. Armed with an encyclopedic knowledge of historical crimes and years of experience working in the medical examiner's office, she's never encountered a case she couldn't solve. Until now. bam. Those are the 5 that I did for the horror challenge. I'll let you try and guess what our theme is across all of these books, and stay tuned. That video should be up later, not too long after this one. So yeah. Let's see what else we got for a wrap up. Earlier in the month, I went on an Alaskan cruise and brought some books that were cruise and Alaska related to read on that trip. I did a vlog. I'll link that video in the description box if you'd like to check it out. I will admit it kind of fell apart, so it's more just looking at the pretty scenery than there is anything about books, but that's okay. I read 3 books for that. First was Hold the Dark by William Giraldi. At the start of another pitiless winter, the wolves have come for the children of Kalot. 3 children have been taken from this isolated Alaskan village, including the 6-year-old son of Medora and Vernon Sloan. Shaken with grief and seeking consolation, Medora contacts nature writer and wolf expert Russell Core. 60 years old, an alien in both body and spirit, and estranged from his daughter and wife, Core arrives in Kalot to investigate the killings. Immersing himself in this settlement at the end of the world, he discovers the horrifying darkness at the heart of Medora Sloan and learns of an unholy truth harbored by this village. So I thought this was just okay. It basically says that Medora contacts Russell to basically, help hunt and kill the wolf that took her boy. She wants something, whether it be, a piece of him, whether it's bones or whatever, to just have when her husband, Vernon, returns from the war. But that is not what this book ends up being about. And honestly, I was hoping for some good wolf scenes, maybe some commentary about wolf conservation, since that's kind of Russell's thing, but nope. It quickly became apparent what was going on, and quite honestly, I still don't really understand what Russell's role was in the whole thing, why we even went that direction. I understand this is a movie, and to be honest with you, I probably will still watch it because my love, Alexander Skarsgård, is in it. I believe he plays Vernon Sloan, so we have that to look forward to. Next was The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This is about Lo Blacklock, a journalist who writes for a travel magazine, and she's just been given the assignment of a lifetime, which is a week on a luxury cruise with a small handful of cabins. The sky is clear, the waters are calm, and a select guest, kind of jovial as the exclusive cruise ship, the Aurora, begins her voyage in the picturesque North Sea. At first, Lo's stay is nothing but pleasant. The cabins are plush, the dinner parties are sparkling, and the guests are elegant. But as the week wears on, frigid winds whip the deck, great skies fall, and Lo witnesses what she can only describe as a dark and terrifying nightmare. A woman being thrown overboard. The problem? All the passengers remain accounted for. This was okay. This was a Ruth Ware book that I think was, I don't know if it was her first one or one of her earlier ones. And I've read some of her later books. I can tell, like, the writing and plot and all that has gotten better. And I still thought the mystery was good in this. But to be honest, like, I was hoping for a different turn of events. I wasn't completely sold on what happens. And I don't know. Like, I thought our main character was a little dumb. So, like, I didn't feel much for the situation that she got herself in. But, you know, classic Ruth Ware always throws us for a loop in the ending. And lastly, for this vlog, I read The Deep by Nick Carter. This is about a strange plague called the Gets, which is decimating humanity on a global scale. It causes people to forget small things at first, like where they left their keys. Then the not so small things like how to drive or the letters of the alphabet. Then their bodies forget how to function, and there is no cure. But now, far below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, deep in the Marianas Trench, there's a unknown substance hailed as ambrosia that has been discovered. This is a universal healer from the initial reports that you get. It may just be the key to an overall cure. But in order to study this phenomenon, a special research lab has been built 8 miles under the sea's surface. But now the station is in command. I can read, honestly. It's not responding. There, we'll just say that. And it's up to a brave few to descend through the lightless fathoms in hopes of unraveling the mysteries lurking at those crushing depths. And perhaps to encounter an evil blacker than anything one could possibly imagine. What a very weird synopsis. That is the first time I think I've actually read the synopsis. Anyways, so there is one thing that Nick Carter nails every time in every one of his books, and that's body horror. Like, just like The Troop, I mean, The Deep has its fair share, and it's glorious, and I loved it. However, as far as just the book content goes, I did not enjoy this as much as I thought I would. The premise is really interesting. Like, this ambrosia thing is creepy, which is what I was hoping for, but like the whole storyline just felt a little disjointed. Like, we got flashbacks, which are not always true flashbacks. And I get, like, that's the whole point, is the disease causes you to forget things, and then being stuck at the bottom of the ocean, like, certainly messes with you. But I felt like some of the flashbacks didn't really add any value to the story, other than just to showcase the confusion of the people. But I think, like, there's other ways that message could have come across without using the flashbacks. And I think a couple of them, like, you don't even really find out the significance until the end, which at that point, like, the timing between when it happened and the reveal is kind of far and few between. So, like, it's lost its importance at that point. And I think our main character was a little indecisive, which was driving me nuts. Like, you're stuck down here, right? You've got some options, although they're limited. Like, quit your whining and pick something. Like, time's running out. Like, come on, like, let's get with it. But, oh well. Let's see. I read two new releases for my Book of the Month challenge. One was Camp Zero by Michelle Means Sterling. In remote northern Canada, a team led by a visionary American architect is breaking ground on a building project called Camp Zero, intended to be the beginning of a new way of life. A clever and determined young woman, codenamed Rose, is offered a chance to join the Blooms, a group hired to entertain the men in camp. But her real mission is to secretly monitor the architect in charge. In return, she'll receive a home for her climate-displaced Korean immigrant mother and herself. Rose quickly secures the trust of her target, only to discover that everyone has a hidden agenda and nothing is as it seems. Excuse me, I need a sip of water. Okay, so I seem to be the minority here because so many people are liking this book, but I thought it was just okay. The beginning was really interesting. We met Rose. Well, that's the name she is assigned. And we got our kind of first look into the camp and settlement life, and it was all super interesting. And I was like interested in learning more about this project and the architect that's supposed to be working on it. That we really didn't like get much of that. There was a lot of talk of Rose, which if you didn't read between the lines about her job to entertain the men, it's just basically a sex slave. So we get a lot of like her learning how to like please her clients, which I don't really give a rat's ass about that. And there is a perspective of Grant, who is a teacher who comes to the camp. And I don't know, like, I really don't think his point of view is really needed. Like, there were a couple reveals at the end, but, like, nothing mind-blowing and not enough to, like, move the rating for me. Now, with that being said, this is a debut. And I think Michelle has some really good writing style, so I would pick up something else that she writes in the future. I think it's kind of all going to be this kind of sci-fi touch, which I did like. Next was The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda. A decade ago, two vans filled with high school seniors on a school service trip crashed into a Tennessee ravine, a tragedy that claimed the lives of multiple classmates and teachers. The 9 students who managed to escape the river that night were irreparably changed. A year later, after one of the survivors dies by suicide on the anniversary of the crash, the rest of them make a pact to come together each year to commemorate that terrible night. Their annual meeting place, a house on the Outer Banks, has been a refuge. Almost immediately, though, something feels off this year. One member disappears during the threat of a major storm coming, and as they promised long ago, each survivor will do whatever he or she can do to save one another. Won't they? Dun, dun, dun. Megan Miranda, to me, just writes, like, classic mystery thriller books. Now, first I will say that, like the synopsis says, this group gets together every year at this house to commemorate their survival. Now, we're not talking like a weekend getaway. We're talking like a whole freaking week. Like, it's non-negotiable. You have to be there. And I don't know. I think that's a lot to ask of someone when none of them really seem like they really want to be there, let alone with each other. Like, I don't know, shorten the days or make it on like a 5-year anniversary or something. I just didn't get the sense that they really did anything special for a whole freaking week. Like, the most of the time, it was just them, like, going down to the local dive bar. I, I don't know. That kind of took away from me. Now, with that being said, this wasn't an all-time favorite thriller, but the last, like, fourth of the book, like, things were happening. You know, stuff was going down, tension was building, secrets were being revealed, and, you know, I was there for it all. And I felt the paranoia of some of the characters. I was surprised at a few of the reveals, and, you know, it ended up not being that bad of a book. So, I would recommend it. And the cover, to me, screams summer, and if you are still interested in reading summer, like, vacation-y thriller, I would definitely pick this one up. This, to me, is a kind of good, summery thriller book. Let's see. Next is the Buzzword Reading Challenge, which is hosted by Books and Lala, and is based on a keyword or theme for the month. This month was flavors and seasonings, and I read The Salt Grows Heavy by Cassandra Call. Salt being the flavor and seasoning. So, the synopsis for this book says, you may think you know how the fairy tale goes. A mermaid comes to shore and weds the prince. But what the fables forget is that mermaids have teeth. And now her daughters have devoured the kingdom and burned it to ashes. On the run, the mermaid is joined by a mysterious plague doctor with a darkness of their own. Deep in the eerie, snow-crusted forest, the pair stumble upon a village of ageless children who thirst for blood, and the 3 saints who control them. The mermaid and her doctor must embrace the cruelest parts of their true nature if they hope to survive. Oh, I was so disappointed by this. Like, when I first picked this up, like, I didn't even read the synopsis. Like, I saw the cover, and I was like, oh my god, this is freaking amazing. And I knew the publisher. They're a trusted publisher for me. And so, like, I just bought it. And then I learned it was about mermaids, and I was surprised and even more intrigued. And now I know what you're thinking, like after we just read the synopsis, like, it's pretty obvious it's about mermaids, so, like, duh, you should have just read the synopsis. But, you know, give me some credit. But this was a mermaid tale that I ultimately struggled with. It went far beyond my comprehension. Now, you would think, like, as a fairy tale-esque, like, there would be some atmosphere and, like, it shouldn't be that hard to comprehend, but it just went over my head. I think Cassandra has a very unique writing style, but I feel like it's too lyrical for me or something. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. And I felt this way with her other book, Blackened Teeth. I don't know. Like, I can't explain it. It just, like, I get the baseline of it, but it just seems too, I don't know, like, drawn out, and I get confused, and then I lose interest, and I don't know. But the books are short, and they're always super interesting. The cover always grabs me. You know, the mermaids were pretty freaking terrifying, which I did appreciate. And And I think ultimately when they got to the island of the children is kind of where it fell apart for me. So I will probably be picking up some other Cassandra Talbots because I know one of these days she's going to write something that's just going to click for me. So, lastly, in the month, I participated in the Asian Readathon hosted by With Cindy on YouTube. There were some prompts. I didn't read all of what I had planned. You know, that month just got away from me. But I did read 3 books. First was My Sweet Girl by Amanda Giatissa. Paloma thought her perfect life would begin once she was adopted and made it to America. But she's about to find out that no matter how far you run, your past always catches up to you. Oh, I really enjoyed this. This was Amanda's debut book. She has since written another kind of wedding thriller called You're Invited. So if you've read that and enjoyed it, I would definitely recommend picking up My Sweet Girl. If you haven't read You're Invited, I would still recommend picking up this book. We get the flashbacks of present day Paloma, and then we get flashbacks of the past Paloma, where she's a kid at the orphanage and kind of her story of the adoption that she talks about so much. And it just comes together so amazing at the end. There's little twists throughout the story. Paloma as a character is snarky and tough, and I think is the perfect personality for this type of mystery. Like I said, this is her second book, and I really, really hope she publishes more thrillers in the future because I love them. Next, I read Rewrite Upon Sticks by Quan Berry. In the town of Danvers, Massachusetts, home of the original 1692 witch trials, the 1989 Danvers Falcons will do anything to make it to the state finals, even if it means tapping into some devilishly dark powers. Oh, this book. This one took me by surprise, and I really liked this. I'm not usually a fan of sports books, but this was sports with a little supernatural undertone, and I guess I just dug that. It is set in the 80s, so you get kind of that 80s nostalgia, right? And follows a school team of girls around. And I loved all the personalities of the girls. To me, they are kind of just this classic group of sports team girls. They refer to themselves in the beginning by their hockey position, and so they have these little nicknames. But kind of as the book goes on, they kind of take this progression where they kind of become one entity as these dark powers take over, and they kind of just refer to themselves as this one entity, which is so unique and so well done. Each chapter in the book is by their game, which was so fun and such a great way to put the book together, because it kind of talks about like their first game where, I mean, they basically sucked something horribly bad, and that kind of, like, you can understand why they made a decision to kind of go this dark path. And then each chapter talks about kind of each person in the team, like, deciding to take the step and joining this power, right? And then kind of what happened at the game. Yeah, it was just very well done. And it was just like a little stuff here and there that made me laugh. One of the characters has this like this giant hair, because of course it's the 80s, so they refer to it like as the claw. And the claw is like pretty much its own character. And she like starts to think about stuff, and it's like the claw thought this, and I don't know, it made me laugh. And it was just a great, good old fun time. I would so recommend this for, like, if you're looking, coming into fall, coming into the October season, and you don't necessarily want, like, a super scary book, but more just, like, a lighthearted, fun book that's got some fall themes. This is one that I would definitely recommend. And if you read it, come back, leave a comment, and tell me what you thought about it. And lastly, I read Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kauai Strong Washburn. In 1995, in Kona, Hawaii, on a rare family vacation, 7-year-old Nanona Flores falls overboard into the Pacific Ocean when a shiver of sharks appears in the water. Everyone fears for the worst, but instead, Noah is gingerly delivered to his mother in the jaws of a shark, marking the story as the stuff of legends. So such an interesting premise, but I was kind of bummed I didn't like it as much as I wanted to. I did love all the Hawaiian culture references and the food talked about in the book. That had my heart in my stomach. This ultimately was, or became, kind of like a coming of age story, and more about how a family deals with the aftermath of like what happens, and having a sibling and a son that is marked, basically. It is more tragic than I thought it would be. I don't know. I guess I just wanted the story centered more around that first part of the sharks, but that was just such like a blip in the book. I don't know, I kind of wanted more of that, but that's it for today's video. Drop a comment below and let me know how your May reading went. Did you have any surprises? Any new favorites? Have you read any of the books that I read? What did you think of them? Tell me all the things I want to know. That's it. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.